Currently Executive Director of the Institute of Pan-African Studies, and that's in Los Angeles. He has taught Black Studies at the California State University at Los Angeles, Long Beach, Dominguez Hills, and San Diego. Moreover, he has served as visiting professor, Black Politics, Stanford University. Distinguished visiting scholar in Black Studies at University of Nebraska, Omaha, and visiting lecturer in Afro-American Studies at the University of Washington in Seattle. An activist scholar of national and international recognition. He has lectured on most of the major campuses of the country and in Africa, the People's Republic of China, and Trinidad on Black life and struggle. And Dr. Maulana Karenga has over the years struggled here in America for the salvation and redemption of African people such as ourselves. In order to properly introduce the good doctor, I refer you to his published work, Selections from the Hosea, of which he is the author. It is the sacred wisdom of ancient Egypt. For your edification, I should like to, as part of our introduction, read to you the back of the cover. Act righteously, for the Lord of righteousness, whose righteousness is righteousness indeed. When goodness is good, it is truly good. Surely, righteousness is for eternity. It goes to the grave with those who do it. When they are buried and the earth envelops them, their name is not erased from the face of the earth. They are remembered because of their goodness. For this is a principle established by the word of God. Speak right and do right. For righteousness is mighty. It is great. It endures. Its worth is real, and it leads one to blessedness. Wrongdoing does not achieve its goal, but one who is righteous reaches dry land. From the book of Kanun Anup. Dr. Karenga is here prior to our opening session of the organization called ASCAC. That is the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. Dr. Karenga was the inspirer for the movement that will find a beginning culmination here in New York City. The movement that he initiated in Los Angeles went on last year to Chicago, that was hosted by the Kemetic Institute, and the brother who is with us here on stage is the president of ASCAC, Brother Jacob Carruthers. These two brothers have made a fundamental historic contribution in terms of establishing the unity and progressive direction for African people in the coming century. You are all going to be a part of this historic movement. There is no way that at this stage in our history we can be deterred from what is rightfully ours: total liberation and freedom, not only for African peoples, but for the entire planet under our leadership. Dr. Karenga, Dr. Carruthers, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, and others are providing us with an opportunity to serve the coming generation represented by so many of you. The work that has been done up until this point is but a drop in the bucket in comparison to what you will be called upon to do. But we have every confidence that you are not only capable of it, but will discharge this responsibility. For your edification, Dr. Maulana Karenga to provide you additional direction. Brother Karenga.
First of all, let me say thanks very much to Brother Bill Jones for the invitation to speak this evening and to share with you some ideas that I hope are mutually beneficial for all of us. And I would like to also say I'm honored to be on the stage with Dr. Jacob Carruthers, who is very much instrumental into my getting deeper into Kemetic studies or ancient Egyptian studies than I was before, the man who answered the questions I had raised about the relevance of Egypt. And so I'm very honored to be here with him, and also, as Brother Bill Jones said, to be engaged with him and with other people, including Bill Jones and Dr. Jeffries and others, in the historic work of rescuing and reconstructing African history, so that we as a people can step back on the stage of human history as a free, proud, and productive people. We can have no greater goal than to stand up and to honor the legacy of those who walked and struggled before us, those who raised images above the earth that last 10,000, even a million years. Those who believe that if you wanted to live for eternity, you had to build for eternity. Those who taught that even 1 hour is a contribution to the future, and even a day is a donation to eternity.
Yes, sir.
Those people who taught us what was good and beautiful, who introduced the basic discipline of Ma'at, the spirituality that we're going to talk about this evening, the worldview that we're going to talk about this evening. Those people who introduced the basic disciplines of human knowledge, science and medicine and technology and architecture. Those people who taught the world to write and perhaps even to speak. That is a history that we should not throw to the side. We are at a critical junction in world history. There are two tendencies in history: that which is rising, coming into being and growing strong, and that which is dying, decaying, and passing away. The world as you see it now, the capitalist world, the white world, the European world, is dying, decaying, and passing away. And the third world, black, brown, red, and yellow people, are the rising tide of history. That which is coming into being, growing stronger, and daring to reshape the world in our own image and interest. Fanon said it: the challenge we face is to start a new history of humankind. Now listen to that, to start a new history. But most people think history is something you read in the book. They thought it's like something kings and queens did, something pharaohs and queens did. They saw it as some sterile data, 1865, 1619. That's far they go back. That's history. Right there, 1619. Nothing before. 6,226 seems outrageous. Certainly can't be talking about us. Especially if we're going to start from when somebody else began the calendar. I mean, look at that now. In the year of who? In the year of our Lord. But I thought our Lord was at the first time. I thought our Lord was forever. So how we start with this other? You can't start a new history if you're working with old history. If you're locked in the way other people see the world, how in the world do you see it the way you ought to see it? People say, I'm an African. I want to build African history and society. I want to build African culture. But did we ever ask, what is African culture? What is African history? What is an African way of seeing the world? In other words, what is an African worldview? Dr. Jacob Carruthers has said there can be no serious African history, social science, religion, spirituality, nothing African can precede an African worldview, because you wouldn't know how to restore it in its proper dimensions. Listen to it now. How do you judge when all these people say, this is African, blood doing wrong, and he said, this is African? Blood just think up something. He like doing it, and he said, hey, baby, this is African. How do you check people like that? You have to know what African is in order to deal with it. So what we have to do is ask ourselves, where can we get documents by Africans themselves? Not anthropological reports, not the white man interpreting us, not Gerald Massey, not the Schwaller de Lubitz, but the Africans themselves writing in their own words, in the spirit of their own understanding of God and themselves. These are primary documents I'm talking about. That's why we go to Kemet or ancient Egypt. And when I say Kemet, you know I'm talking ancient Egypt. But some people don't. And we must not be so intolerant that once we find a category, we demand everybody else know it. And we ain't even told them about it. We don't whip people down with knowledge. That's Europe. Europe put libraries up and then taught a legend that said a man was cursed because he dared to know. Said his wife tricked him with an apple of knowledge. Only the Europeans could think of something like that. Here you got people in a garden and they can't know. Guy can't even know his name yet. And the woman that pours his fig leaf and say, hey, what you got is real. They curse her. All this is preparatory. We just trying to get to the African worldview. But if I don't puncture illusions of the European worldview, the African worldview won't even make sense. That is why I taught in the 60s and continue to teach that the real revolution must be first and foremost a cultural revolution. You can tell people, hey, you can tell people all day, pick up the gun, let's go get the white man. You have noticed this has not happened. Blood pick up the gun, he used it on the wrong person. Because of what has happened, which I call the westernization of human consciousness. So much so that black people think like Westerners. Even when they declare their Africanity, they think like Westerners. The whole desire to see an aggressive warrior. Well, I understand that. Do you understand? I understand that. And I'm not going to give no lecture against that. You understand? But is that all we're supposed to be? Where does the balance come in? And if we don't have a battlefield in the street, is there any wonder we turn our houses into battlefield? If we can't get the real enemy, does it surprise you then that we turn on each other? We're talking balance here. That sounds like, to me, the African worldview. Again, these are just preparatory remarks to get you ready, prepared for the solution and the African worldview I would like to offer. Fanon said, the challenge of history is to start a new history. History is a very human thing, black people. We bring it into being with what we do and do not do, with what we think and do not think. What we have to do in order to start a new history is to have a paradigm, a model of what that history ought to look like. We have to develop a new way of thinking. And if we don't use an original African model, we can never be sure of it. We have to choose a time and place where the European was not there, where he has not perverted it with his anthropological interpretation, where we can see the books that are left, the documents that our ancestors wrote. This is called going to primary sources. And no place is better today that we know of than ancient Egypt. So that when we talk about an African worldview, we start in the classical civilization of Egypt. Egypt is our classical civilization the same way Greece is to the white man. In fact, we know that the Greeks stole, took, borrowed, ciphered, whatever you want, siphoned off, whatever, much of what they claim that is theirs from Kemet. So that, as Diop says, until we recognize the gift, the legacy of Egypt, and restore it to a central place in our life, we will always look like debtors to the world rather than the world being indebted to us. This is a classical civilization that is complex enough, old enough, separate from Europe enough in its early days to give us an idea of how African thought in the beginning. People that talked about millions and millions of years. Can you imagine that blood trying to get through a day? Hoping something won't happen that he can't handle on the way to work or school. And here are people thinking about millions and millions of years. It's mind-boggling. How could they think like that? And what did they think? Let me try to just give you some ideas about what I think are elements of an African worldview that we need in order to rescue and reconstruct our history and humanity in our own image and interest. And remember, this is a contribution to breaking the monopoly that the white man has on our mind. Because as I said in the 60s, until we break the monopoly that the white man or the oppressor has on our mind, liberation is not only impossible, it's unthinkable. And what you cannot conceive, you can't achieve. Don't ever let anybody think you can just luck up on things that are great. You must self-consciously mold yourself in your own image. That's Afrocentricity, in the image and interest of Africans. In the image, what do I mean? Not simply the physical image, but most important, the cultural image, the value image, the view image. Culture has to coincide with our essence, with our aspirations, with our ascendant self. We teach that the human person has a double tendency, two tendencies, an ascendant tendency, striving toward godhood, and a descendant tendency, going back to the animal world. And without a clear-cut guide away from that which is low to that which is high, we'll get stuck in the middle at best, and at worst, decay and go animal. That's why people say, you are a brute. Stop pawing me. Because people have stepped over the line. There's an art to being human. That's why Europe ain't mastered it yet. They're not into it. They don't have a guideline for it, and their cultural values don't support it. Now, I know that's an awesome statement, isn't it? The average person might not think that that's so. But like Malcolm said, time will tell. And if you don't have time, analysis will help. What should the African worldview look like? What does it look like from our studies? There are several elements to it. The first is spirituality. What is spirituality? If you're going to have an African worldview, seems to me one of the first things that you have to include, one of the things that all societies had, was a sense of spirituality. The Egyptians called the sacred Jessa, which means that which is set aside, that which should be observed with reverence and deference. Without a proper respect for that which is best in us, we can't even have the right view toward ourselves, toward other humans, or toward nature. Without a sense of an ultimate idea, you can call it what you want. You can call it God, you can call it nature, you can even give it names. But without a sense of an ultimate idea, a value, a goal to achieve, like Godhood, the best in you can never be cultivated. And the African mind knew that and knows that. And it became a part of our consciousness to set aside something that was sacred, inviolable, something that inspired us to the best of what we ought to be. If you look at the ideas of God, what you're talking about is ultimate ideas, all powerful, all knowing, all good. That's the ultimate. Without that goal, men and women wouldn't even achieve half of what they achieve. And without a sense of that which is beautiful and good, men and women have no measure for what is good and what is bad.
That's right.
Spirituality then becomes intense emotional and rational appreciation for and commitment to the highest values of humankind. Love and joy and peace and sisterhood and brotherhood, truth and justice, harmony, balance, reciprocity. These are expressed in the 7 cardinal virtues of Ma'at. The key word in the ancient Egyptian society or Kemetic society is Ma'at. That represents Kemetic spirituality. And Ma'at means a lot of things, but usually people translate it as truth, justice, or righteousness. Righteousness is the all-inclusive term, and one cannot be one cannot be righteous without being truthful, and one cannot be righteous without being just, so that I use righteousness to subsume all the characteristics out. I have also developed 7 cardinal virtues that I think express Ma'at. This doesn't mean this is all that Ma'at is. It seems to me that from my reading, these virtues and values turn up most often and seem to be essential to creating the African worldview about spirituality. And those values are truth, justice, propriety, harmony, balance, reciprocity, and order. Truth. What is truth? Well, you know that's difficult to answer, but let's just deal with it in terms of a working definition. When we talk about truth, we're talking about saying that and doing that which is in correspondence with reality. Now, what is the reality of ourselves? We usually think of truth as just telling something that's correct, something that corresponds with reality. But what about the truth of yourself? African spirituality demands you tell and act out the truth of yourself. Do you know the truth of yourself? The white man has worked hard giving us masks to disguise ourselves. We are baseball fans. We are city dwellers. We're New Yorkers, Chicagoans, and Angel Leons. We're Baptists and Methodists and Catholics and Muslims and Black Hebrews. But what is the essence of what we are? What were we before we assumed those names? Malcolm said, look at it. Malcolm knew without knowing. You know, we got a thing, black people got a thing where they know without knowing. Did you know that even though Malcolm doesn't read Kemetic scriptures or Kemetic writings, he knows that black is our essence. He knows that black is our most fundamental identity. He knows that we were black before we were born. Therefore, Malcolm said, when you and I come together, did he say that? We got to forget all these differences. We don't catch hell because we're Baptists or Methodists. And And we don't catch hell because we're American, because if we were American, we wouldn't catch no hell. We catch hell because we're black in a white world. So what you have to understand is that if you're going to really be spiritual, you got to start with knowing and acting out the truth of yourself. There's no need of giving the African worldview if you can't apply it. And the first element is spirituality. Respecting that which is sacred. And you and your brother and sister are sacred. If you're not sacred, God is not sacred. There's nowhere in the world you can justify allegiance to God who you haven't seen and hate and ready to kill people you live with every day. If that's not hypocrisy and an offense to an African morality, I don't know what is. This scripture, this sacred text to Hosea says, we are in the image of God. But it also says we are gods ourselves. But that logic is clear, isn't it? If you're in the image of God, if God is your father and you are his son and daughter, why wouldn't you be what he is? And why don't you know this truth? And why, when it's spoken, don't you feel it? Because your rents do. Because your grades ain't what they ought to be. Because your man ain't talking right and your woman don't want to do what she says. Because you got locked in immediacy and can't think eternity. The Egyptians thought eternity. Therefore, rent and stuff like all this we talking, that was on a different level. If you're African, you gotta think spiritual, which means thinking timelessly. Time doesn't bind you. History doesn't bind you. What is your mind for if you can't leap beyond centuries? If you can't leap beyond the immediate and dare think greatness? Whatever happened to your historical memory? It was violated. It was raped. It was erased. It was altered. It was mutilated. So that the farthest we can remember back with any certainty is 1619. That makes real to us. Because that fit in with what the white man has said again. A nigger ain't nothing. And if a nigger starts from 1619, there's evidence. Did I say I disapprove of all this history since then? Of course not. But what I'm doing, if I start at 1619, I'm talking about one of the shortest periods in my history. So what I'm doing, I'm getting just a small part and picture of what I really am. And if he lets us do that, then we got to ask, what have we done that's like his? Do you understand? We've got to ask, after all these basketball players we produced, and all these musicians we still got, what else have we done? Now, you and I know the best minds out here. Is that fair? That's all of y'all. Know that we've done things. But the grandeur and the greatness that stretches back further than anybody can count, that's what I'm concerned with. And that's what gives us a sense of history and truth of ourselves that 1619 knowledge can give us. If it could, we'd have had it already. This is why when the intellectual history of Africans in America is written, when it is inclusive and detailed like it should, our meeting in 1984 in Los Angeles and forming the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization will represent a turning point in our struggle for both political and cultural liberation.
That is right. That is right.
Know the truth of yourself. Fanon says we must ask ourselves 3 questions. Who am I? Am I really who I am? And am I all I ought to be? Spirituality says measure yourself by the 7 cardinal virtues of Ma'at, the ancient Egyptian concept of that which is right, straight, correct, that which is truthful, justful, that which is proper, that which is harmonious, that which is balanced, that which is reciprocal, and that which is based on order. Do we live a life like that? The African has a sense of spirituality as opposed to the European stress on materialism. Now, let's look at the contrast. And believe me, if you read Diop, you know Diop has listed most of these things. What I'm saying comes from what he has written, what Dr. Jacob Carruthers has written, and what I've studied myself, not simply in Kemetic society, but also in the whole of African society as a continent. Because if what Egypt teaches is correct, if what it teaches is African, you'll find it in other African societies. Tell me a society where spirituality is not a primary concern, where appreciation of the sacred and the sense of humans as sacred also does not exist. Tell me a society where that's not so. So the first principle of the African worldview is to set aside something that's sacred, something you don't violate, something you don't humiliate, something you don't spit on, something that means something real and beautiful in your life. One of the worst feelings I get sometimes is to come to nationalist meetings and they don't feel nothing. They're not happy, they're not sad, they just bored and tired. They don't want to embrace, they don't want to shake your hand, they don't want to clap, they don't want to stand up, they don't want to do nothing but rot in the routine they locked in. That's not spiritual. A spiritual man and woman are happy and joyous and vigorous. They have a sense of history being on their side.
Yes, sir.
They have a sense of righteousness triumphing. They have a grasp of self, society, and the world, and they know who they are. They are, as the Hosea said, a God and a son and daughter of a God. And they know that in the final analysis, history will vindicate and raise them up. But to the average nationalist sometimes, sadness is a way of life. When you don't have nothing sacred, you don't feel happy because you ain't going nowhere. Let me just tell you something. A lot of times people be criticizing the Christians. You ever go to church? If you haven't, go there. See how very involved the people are. See how they're lifted up. You know, spirituality lifts up. It lifts the spirit. You can't tell me you're spiritual, your spirits are down. You see, when you're spiritual, you have a sense of movement and destiny. You have a sense of heightened consciousness of what is real and what is unreal. One of the basic things that, as George Jackson points out in his book, George James points out in his book, Stolen Legacy, he points out one of the basic things the young students in the priesthood were taught. It's what was real and what was unreal, what was truthful and what was a lie. The spiritual person can make a distinction because they have latched on to that which is eternal and that which raises up rather than cast down. The second element in African worldview is not only spirituality, but collectivity. Not only are we not materialistic, but spiritual, we're not individualistic in our best. We're collective. But you say, hey, that collective can get out of hand. Blood be asking to share all my things, they don't give up nothing. I don't know if I can live with anybody. I don't know if I can share nothing. And that other stuff y'all talk about sharing, I don't even want to hear that. People ain't got no sense of the collective. They don't want to do the collective. Why do you feel we don't want to do the collective? There was a time when we lived together, when we worked together, when we built together, when we dreamed together. When you didn't hear people murder mouthing everybody every day. When you would just hear brotherhood and sisterhood. That doesn't mean I'm talking about some idealistic place where nobody had any problems. I didn't say that. We're talking about what the main thrust was. You always have problems. The question is, how do you solve them and the nature of the problem? Individualism is a major problem in the black movement today, in the black community today. It's that which leads people to rob and kill each other, to murder mouth each other. They're only concerned with themselves and not with the consequences of their action. If I'm collective, I'm concerned with you. I'm concerned with your feelings. I'm concerned with your knowledge. I'm concerned with where you live and what you like and do not like. I take Mbiti's position that a fundamental way to express this collectiveness is this: I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. Or look at the Dinka, who have a word, seeing, that means harmony and morality at the same time. Can you imagine that? Seeing, harmony, morality. In other words, you can't even be moral unless you're in harmony. How do you claim an African worldview if you're separated, if you're hostile to the collective? Oh, it's easy. I want mine, baby. Do you understand that? This is mine. This is my turf. This is my book. This is my hour. Do you understand? Let me speak. I don't want no dialogue. I'm going to speak and leave. You don't accept what I say? Too bad, tough. Go read it somewhere. That ain't even us. It's just like I make a distinction between the white man's art and ours. His music and art events are like spectacles. People come in and watch it, go out. Ours is participatory. The white man gets up at an opera. He go to an opera, people do all that, ooh, you know what they do. People listen to him, listen now, people listen to him, guess what they do? At the end, they stand up, bravo, bravo. Now, they ain't done nothing all while this man is rapping, you understand? The woman done struck her best note, and they just right there watching. The blood, time the artist come on stage, he's ready. He knows the artist's song, he right in there. He dancing for the music star. He just waiting for the signal. That's participatory. Now you see how much goodness and beauty and joy that brings you just knowing about that. Why can't you take that to other parts of your life? If you can do it on the stage and you can do it for music, why can't you do it in daily life? You see, we like the idea. It's the practice that bothers us. See, we like the idea of being a pharaoh or God, but then we don't want to be godly. That's a burden we don't want to bear. And we like the idea of the collective when it's to our advantage. But when it becomes a burden on our shoulder, we don't bear it with dignity or honor. You can't be what you want to be when you want to be it. You got to be it all the time. That's what a value system is for. That's what a value system is for. A value system gives you an ultimate authority, a sense of certainty in a world of uncertainty, but it also gives you predictability of behavior. So if you accept this African worldview and value system, I can trust you. I can lean on you. I know you won't do anything that violates my godhood or yours. I know that you'll consider my human person sacred and you won't mutilate it. You won't humiliate me. You'll love me and raise me up. If you're really African. But if you're a Negro, if you're a European in disguise, don't tell them what you'll do. One of the worst things about a Negro, you never know what they're going to do. I'm telling you now. And that's because they're not committed to a value system. They don't hold nothing sacred. And they only like it when it goes the way they want it to. If that's not individualism, if that's not straight out of the caves of Europe, I don't know what is. I want you to understand this now. If we're talking about having an African worldview, we just can't know it. We got to do it. And we've got to use it as a measure of how much man and woman we are, and especially how much God we are, how close we are to our ascendant tendencies rather than our descendant tendencies. Speaking of collectivity, look at the 7 principles. The first principle is umoja, unity. That's collectivity. That's the African worldview. One of the reasons I chose the 7 values from Africa is because of their collective emphasis. Umoja, collective. Ujima, ujamaa. These are collective values. This was the social cement that held communal African societies together. To be collective is to be communitarian. To have a sense of community. To believe that we're in this together for now and forever. To accept the burden and glory of your blackness. And to believe that only by working together can we build a new world together. Selfishness says this: hey, I've tried to help Negroes all my life. Your mother too, so what? Your mother raised some Negroes all her life. Do you understand? We got to be self-critical. We are all greatly unjust to ourselves. We all have not done what we ought to do. And we all can do more than we think we can. And we cannot know what we can do unless we know our first point I made, the truth of ourselves. We can't even measure ourselves. We walking around thinking running fast is a great honor. We got people right now that clap and pay $20 and $40 a night to go hear people just scream and talk bad about black women, calling them freakazoids and super freaks. Black women in the audience hearing men on stage humiliating them. And they're saying, hey, baby, this is just music. Don't try to make something out of everything. They're talking about you, your mother, your sister, and you dancing to it. And black men dancing to the humiliation of their own women. And then dancing to their own humiliation when Tina says, they're not human. Take the money and run. Just take the money, baby, because they're not even worth it. Tina said, don't even look at the face when you take the money. That's selfishness. That's individualism. That represents the lowest level of disappreciation of our community responsibility. You're not just responsible for yourself, you're responsible for others. Black dignity, black freedom is indivisible. As long as there's one nigga left, everybody else is one. Right. And you just have to run into the right person to remind you. A third thing that is in the African worldview, in addition to spirituality and collectivity, is respect for nature and the natural. You ever notice how the European be poisoning the sky, polluting the water, putting all kind of radioactive waste in the ground, destroying the water tables, shows no respect for nature. Well, he got some blood, scared to respect and like nature. Dr. Carruthers teaches that we will never be on the right path until we establish a balance between humans, nature, and God. That's the African way. I accept that. But do you know what? Nature is not just outside. Nature is inside.
That's right.
You see, we are a mirror of that which is around us. And that which is around us is a mirror of what's inside us. The reason the white man pollutes his streams is because he's polluted internally with the wrong values. The reasons the capitalists will pimp the land and the water and the air without even thinking of the consequences. And why he's dedicated to money rather than human life is because that's the way his mind is. If he got an open sewer in the street, it's because he got an open sewer in his mind. It's the unnaturalness inside us that makes us do unnatural things on the outside. And the first thing one must realize is that if you can't appreciate the environment in which you live and depend on for life and sustenance, how can you even claim you appreciate human life? You know, blood's got so far away from nature, they don't even want to bring flowers. They think it's gay if you give flowers. They don't even want to go around the beach unless they want to see somebody's stuff out. You understand? They don't want to go to see the river or the ocean. You understand what I mean? They're going to see them bottoms and whatever else the white man in his drive to expose himself has cut out in the swimsuit this year. When do we get back in tune with nature? When do we feel at home in the world that is ours? And when do we do that which is natural in conformity with our nature and nature in general? Spirituality, collectivity, respect for nature and the natural. A fourth thing is cooperativeness. Now notice how all of this is collective. Cooperativeness. How do we relate to each other? Are we competitive? Are we aggressive? Sometimes people don't even want to be cooperative or concede because they think that's a weakness. They think gentleness is almost homosexuality in a man. You're not supposed to be gentle. Women are supposed to be gentle. You're supposed to be aggressive, talk loud and hard. You know how we are. No, that's not how we are. That's how the European is. The European who broke out of Europe and conquered and ruined the rest of the world. Even without us thinking, we begin to think like him, and we begin to believe might is right. And since we can't try it on him, we try it on each other. We must be assertive. Don't walk out thinking I said no assertion. We must be assertive, but there's a difference between being assertive and being aggressive. Aggressive is violation of the human personality by violence, mental, moral, physical, spiritual. But assertiveness is stepping in the world and shaping it in your own image and interest. That is why we talk so much gentleness and humbleness in ancient Egypt. Kagame says the modest person is strong. Why would he say that the modest or humble person is strong? Why not the armed man? The European said the armed man is strong. Isn't that what Reagan talking? He wants to hang nuclear holocaust over our heads. A decaying old white man from Santa Barbara who just can't get on a horse, acting out movie fantasies with the future of the planet. He doesn't want to cooperate. He wants to conquer. That's the same attitude the white man had toward nature. He didn't want to cooperate with it. He didn't even want to control it. He wanted to conquer it. And now reciprocity is turning on him. Because he violated nature, nature's getting ready to cause him some violations. That's reciprocity. Cooperation is the correct way. Let me say what Kagame said again. Kagame, I want to just say this one quick point. Kagame said, the modest person is strong, and one who is true in word and just in deed is praised. Houses are open to the humble, and a wide seat is given to one who is gentle in speech and conduct. A wide seat is given. Try to take it, you don't get nothing. Come in and be humble. We can give you enough room. It is the humble person that is strong, because the humble person is aware of his or her own strength. The man who knows Yangumi or karate, don't come in breaking no back of the seat. That's the young student. Just found out what power is and can't wait to show it. Those people you can knock down. It's the people that keep telling you, don't do that. Those are the people that have a death warrant under the coat. The humble person is humble because he or she is strong. See, when you're strong, you can concede. You know who you are. You know the truth of yourself. And truth is a strength in itself. And the European knows the strength of truth. That's why he doesn't want us to know it. Kagame said, the modest person, the humble person is strong. The humble person is peaceful. He or she follows peace with everybody. You'll notice in African society, you always hear the word peace. Peace to you. Come in peace. Go in peace. This is in all African society. In ancient Egypt or Kemet, they said, Hotep, Yim Hotep, come in peace. Shemim Hotep, go in peace. Why do you think we put on peace? Do you think because we scared? European heard us saying that, he took advantage of it. So I'm not teaching any kind of weakness. I'm not teaching any kind of bending over backwards to give evil an opening. I'm just saying, if you're talking African, you're talking a cooperative spirit that is not aggressive but assertive, and that is not warlike but peaceful. Be at peace with yourself. The final characteristic of the African worldview is humaneness, a sense of humanity. The European, for all his claims about humanity, doesn't like humanity. He has enslaved 3/4 of humanity just on the basis of color and convenience. He's enslaved his own woman and his own poor people. I'm talking about the ruling white man. So he can't be for humanity. Oh, he'll run around and say, well, if y'all had this power, y'all do this too. That's begging the question. We know what you're doing. You're speculating about what we might do. You don't get out of the charge of being the devil by pointing to some devilish thing somebody else does. We're talking about a long history here, Charlie. We're not just making up a day or two. That's why Fanon said, let us leave the European that is always talking about man, but wherever he finds him is murdering him. Let us, black people, begin to think of the world in a new way. Where he poses materialism, let us pose spirituality. That doesn't mean we have to live with rats and roaches to prove we're revolutionary. That means we don't sell our soul for money and machines. That means that we don't have cash connections in our relationship where women look for men to take care of them as if they were disabled. And where they judge men by their money rather than their morality. If you pursue a man for his money and he turns out to be a freak, don't let it bother you. He's going to pay for it. To the European mind, nothing is sacred. You ask yourself, black people, what's sacred in your life? What is the one thing you won't attack? What is the one thing that gives you joy and strength to go on every day? I'm not talking about just getting by. How you doing, baby? I'm just fairly making it, baby. I don't want no talk like that. We don't want cockroach existence. We want development. Do you understand that? That's the Negro crawling through cracks, looking for crumbs off the white man's table. We want an African that dares greatness, that takes the world as he or she finds it and makes something beautiful and black out of it. We're talking about gods who step in space and find nothing and build a mound from which he or she builds the whole world. If you don't have a place to stand, do like Ptah, make a mound and stand on it. Stop complaining about what you haven't done. Stop complaining about how you ain't got no chance, how your woman don't support you. No wonder. Stop complaining about your man done gone. No wonder. Stand up and speak your own truth. Act out your own truth, and you'll be surprised what you can achieve. Suppose Ra or Ptah stepped in space and didn't find nothing and said, I better go back where I came from. I ain't got nothing to work with. That's the blood. It rains and he don't even come out. Looking for an excuse not to do something righteous. Be spiritual. You got a heavy load on you. The moment you claim Egypt, you got a legacy that's going to be a heavy burden on your shoulder. Don't play with that claim, okay? That's not like claiming you come from basketball players or a long line of musicians. You understand what I mean? Be honest now. We're talking about a classical civilization that taught the world how to stand up and taught the world what was good and beautiful, that introduced the basic disciplines of human knowledge. And you and I know that even before Egypt, there was somebody else. But we're talking about who we got the data on here. Can we start with that? You know, a lot of times blood want to go all the way back, and he ain't even mastered this. Get this. Get this. You understand? Get this. We get this, we gone. Do you understand that? Spirituality. I told you, remember, you're sacred to each other. I'm just running back over the virtues, okay? Spirituality, you're sacred to each other. If you're not sacred, God's not sacred. And if you don't respect each other, you ain't got no love for God. I don't care how many Holy Ghosts you get and how much shouting you do and how much you turn east and bow down. If you don't like each other, you don't like God. I don't care what you call it. I take that position. Don't say I'm God and then treat me like a nigger. Don't say I'm God and do to me what the white man does. Violates my own sense of history and humanity. Spirituality, that's the first thing. Don't sell yourself for money and machine. Get what you need to live and then go on and cultivate your mind. That's what makes us different from the animal. We are spiritual. We are mental. It's the animal that's genetic, that is locked between his or her legs. Next. Next. Be collected. Cut out this individualism. Do you understand that? It's going to be hard because, you know, even as we talk about collectivity, usually we pose it in our own way. You ever notice that? People, everybody better say, a lot of times people don't even want to give blacks credit for what they do. Well, I thought of this, brother. So brother might get up now, even if I say this. Watch this. You know, brother, that's what I've been thinking all the time. Well, yeah, I understand that. Well, if you have, write it down so we can share in it. See, don't make awesome claims and then have paltry deeds to show for it. Do you understand? If you really feel that what you got is good, give it to us. Do you understand? And stop thinking about yourself and be concerned with the consequences of your actions and your thought. Third, respect nature and that which is in you, which is natural. Don't bend over backwards, give evil an opening and try to make it a genetic thing. Don't violate your own sense of gender and manhood or womanhood. Be honest with yourself. The white man is going through a big gender crisis now. He's suffering gender dysphoria like you can't even imagine. But this doesn't surprise me, you know that? Anytime a culture has as its motto, a dog is a man's best friend, you know he not only doesn't have any sense of collectivity, he got a problem with humanity. Don't feel bound to other men. Even the small car is built so you won't have to pick nobody up. More and more houses are built so you can't invite nobody over even if you want. All the commercials are dedicated to you being by yourself. Conditions create consciousness. I told you that before when I was here. It's hard to live in a whole house not turning a tree. If you live in America and they doing that, you'll start thinking that. And if you don't have a value system, a view system that makes you analyze and have a different set of categories of commitments and priorities, your human possibilities would be diminished, just like the man who rules us. And then, don't ever forget to be cooperative. Again, be assertive. Don't let people walk over you, but don't be aggressive. Don't think that force is the solution to problems. And don't feel you have to violate somebody's honor to be great yourself. Your greatness depends upon how the people around you look at you. Your life depends upon how the people around you look at you and are concerned with you. See in them your future, not your destruction. See in them your partners, not your competitors. See in them people joined in a task that will honor their ancestors. And finally, I would end on this. Never let anybody redefine your humanity. The European, and that's the last point, I went all over those to get right back to this. The European has violated the whole of humanity. He has made human other than what it is. We have to set in motion a new human society. And it must be based on values that respect the human personality. A lot of times black nationalists don't even want to talk about humanity. But we started humanity. We're the ones who stood up. We're the ones who grasped consciousness and began to define the world and began to organize sciences and began to look at the stars and chart them and name them. We're the ones who introduced medicine. We thought. We are the conscious people. We are the people who introduce humanity to itself. Isn't it strange how now we don't have a paradigm for humanity? It's because we don't go back in our history and remember when we were the light of the world. Egypt was not just the light of Egypt, not just the light of Northeast Africa, not even the light of just Africa. It was the light of the world. You who say we've given the world so much, why don't we offer the world a new sense of humanity? Not based on the hatred that the white man taught us, not based on materialism, not based on individualism, not based on unnaturalness or aggressiveness, but based on spirituality, collectivity, naturalness, cooperativeness, and a new sense of what it means to be human. And again, don't ever underestimate any one person. Everybody is as important as anybody else. Don't ever get used to dying. Never accept tragedy as if it's a part of life. One of the most terrible things about the color purple, and that's one of the most dangerous pictures you're going to see in a long time, is that it violates our sense of humanity while pretending to raise it up. Alice Walker has said, Seeley shows human triumph over oppression. But does she? First of all, you know the color purple ain't nothing but a bunch of adult pickaninny Negroes doing a takeoff of buckwheat and farina. I was going to wait for this, but let me just go on to you and give you my 5 criticisms of it. I'm talking about humanity now. Keep in mind what I told you about the westernization of human consciousness and the failure to establish an African worldview. And what I said tonight ain't half of what an African worldview composes. I'm just talking about outlines that you can work with, a framework to just begin with. Look at the color purple. 5 arguments against it. First of all, it's nothing but a catering to the white man's desire to see us pathological. Catering to the white man's desire to make himself most human and us inhuman, especially the black man. And by example and connection, the black woman, which I'll get to in a minute. There's a dialect. Well, let me say it now. There's a dialect, sister. Don't ever be happy that the black man's being savage, because you are linked to him for life. If the black man, listen to the logic of this. If the black man is a pimp, you got to be a hoe, because he's pimping somebody. And if the white man can prove he's a pimp, he's at the same time prove you are a hoe. If he proves the black man is a brute and a beast, you're a beast lover and dehumanize your beastly self. Just look at the logic of it. The white man has had the color purple and taken it right from Alice Walker, regardless of what she wanted to do with it. When he gave it the Pulitzer Prize, it was for its pathology, not for its artistic achievement. That's why he gave it to Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg, I tell you, knew what to do with it. He had bloods coming out there crying. Blood said it was real. It made me cry. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I said it's a violation of our humanity. It's a violation of the African worldview of what a human really is. Listen to what I said as a catering to the white man's desire to see us pathological. Listen just quickly, it won't take me long. First, let's make a criticism of it in its own terms. I'm still on number 1, that is, I'm gonna give 5 arguments against it, but the first one is that it's a catering to the white man and a reinforcement of racist stereotype. This is Amos and Andy pretending to be serious. There's a sapphire in it. There's a cruel, stupid Negro, you understand? And they're all buck dancing, little rascals, buckwheat farina. You know it? But let's go past that. Alice Walker said she wants everybody to see Seeley as a triumphant human. Now, how did Seeley triumph? That's a catering to the white man's stereotype of us being sexual and physical. Seeley gets her triumph by Suge doing it to her. Now, if Alice Walker wanted to raise the black woman, let the black women have a friendship that's spiritual rather than physical. If I wrote a book and said I raised my woman by doing it to her, Everybody say I'm a sick person and say that I'm a sexist. If a man wrote a book and said, it was that last stroke I made that broke her into consciousness, people say that Negro is sick. But Alice Walker wants us to believe the rubbing of clitorises is a pathway to higher consciousness. I'm still in a stereotype. So whether she wanted to cater to him or not, she's undermining her own claim that Seeley is a human being in the fullest sense of the word. Second, look at the concept right in the stereotype of the ugly black woman. Steven Spielberg and Alice Walker got this woman, Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi is one of the most deformed creatures I have ever seen in my life. I had never knew that Hattie McDaniel was alive and well. They're going to give Whoopi Goldberg an Academy Award. But she's not the first one that got it for timing and bucking. So did Hattie McDaniel. And Gone with the Wind. Miss Scarlett. Whoopi Goldberg did so many tap dancing on Entertainment Tonight, Rona Barrett felt bad for her. Nevertheless, let me get back to Alice Walker. In the violation of our humanity, I'm still in the racist stereotype. They chose a bold-featured black woman and put on every commercial around the world. Suge coming to the door and telling a bold-featured black woman, who is pretty when she ain't acting silly, you are ugly. Why didn't they choose a weak featured woman or a medium-featured woman? Why not? And made her ugly. Because of the westernization of human consciousness and because of the violation of their own humanity and a violation of the very truth of themselves. Second, and third rather, Alice Walker wants us to believe that she, in fact, was not savaging the black man. But that's the second argument I got. She was. That the picture is bad because it continues the pathological need the white patriarchal society has to savage black men. Alice Walker says, and the black women in the audience, a lot of places say, hey, baby, but I know some niggas like that. This is real, they say. Hey, but I know some black women like that. Does that mean all of them are like that? Can you write a novel that pretends to be authentic and you don't have one sane, strong black man with one redeeming characteristic? What the white man has done in his worldview is equated tragedy with reality. When you say it's real, you mean it's tragic. You say love ain't real. If they saw love, you say it's mushy. The white man makes us hate love. Even his love story ends in tragedy. He makes us believe unless it's tragic, it's not real. And when he can get us to equate tragedy with reality and to accept it, we're accepting the tragedy of our situation. And we'll say about the tragedy of our situation what we say about reality. You can't do nothing about it, you better face it. People say, but Maulana, it had to be real. It made me cry. I fell for it. But you know the problem with that is you're confusing communication and human issues with something that's real. Negroes cried in E.T. People, hey, you can go to a porno show and it might stimulate you. Does that mean it's right? If you saw a person right now that you didn't even know, with his stomach cut open and his guts hanging in his hand, you saw that on the stage, wouldn't you feel something? That's your humanity speaking. You don't want to see a black man savage a black woman. It's a painful and tragic thing. That's why they showed it. So that when you walked out, you hated that Negro and would have killed him. And what this is programming you to hate the black man and programming the audience to want to kill him. So when the white man does it for you, you say the nigga deserved it. People say, hey, but the black woman has suffered too, baby. Don't make it like the black man's the only one suffered. I'm not. Yeah, the black woman suffered. But you got to be missing something if you don't know that the greatest bulk of the white man's anger and viciousness is against the black man, because this is a patriarchal society, and the first need of a patriarchal society is to destroy the other males. So there is a structure to destroy the black man. That's why more of them in captivity than black women. That's why more on dope. That's why the white man paid the black woman to keep the man out of the house. That's why the white man not only has the color purple, he produces a black vanishing family and has a black man that's sick by anybody's estimation. Speak for black men. This poor brother is so sick, he don't need TV time, he needs help. But the white man likes that. And notice right after that, Reagan gets on television and said, we got to cut this welfare out. Third, I'm against it because it shifts the dialogue from great racial and human issues to gender ones. Black people now are discussing whether the black man is hard on the black woman or not. What about the whole issue of our liberation in this country? What about South Africa? What about Grenada? What about black people in the world? Who's going to discuss that? People so fired up about whether or not the black man is treating the black woman or not, and discussing that all across country on college campuses in the street. Why don't they discuss black people in general and our loss of status since the 60s and our disorientation since the 60s? We've shifted the discussion from great issues of race to gender issues. Don't run away and say I'm not for talking about male-female relations. You know I am. Every time I come here, I talk about male-female relationship. But that can't be our only conversation or our main conversation. We will solve those problems as we discuss them and work together. We won't just discuss solve them by getting each other to agree. In the final analysis, practice proves everything. If we work together, we can overcome together. But if all we do is call each other hostile names, we got a problem. Fourth reason I'm against it is because it shifts criticism from the white man to each other. See, now everybody lining up talking about how bad the black man is. Ain't that cold? White man likes that. The Negro ain't nothing, he said. I told y'all that. Is this the truth of ourselves? What happened to our spirituality? What happened to the correct definition of who we are? I'm against letting the white man off the hook. I will tell you this, though. Even though the white man is guilty for our enslavement, we're responsible for our liberation. And finally, I'm against it because it represents a turning point in the black movement and in black history, where black people, even nationalists, some nationalists, not all of them now, where black people, civil rights, integrationists, and nationalists have not only failed to protest their degradation in the media, but in fact applauded it. This is cold, black people. Do you remember how we fought against That's My Mama, Amos and Andy, Huggy Bear, Sugar Baby, the absent father image on television? We were against Julia, remember? I don't know how many people around and remember Julia. We were against the degradation of the black family. And when Bill Cosby came, we all clapped, remember? We said, at last, a sane family on television. Now I know some of the fundamentalists still don't like Bill Cosby, but Bill Cosby didn't have no dope deal. The man and woman was there, and the black people talked serious issues, even though they talked funny at times. See, the nationalists are always against something. You got to admit the fact that Bill Cosby got a sane family, nobody's on dope, nobody's killing nobody. You understand what I mean? The father hasn't been conveniently killed on the way to the store. You know what I mean? And I'm saying to you, if the black man and woman are right about their praise of Bill Cosby, then they can't praise Alice Walker. If the same family, the healthy family, the mother, father, same children family is correct, Alice Walker can't be right. And if you praise one by the same logic, you got to condemn the other. What this represents to us black people is a westernization of human consciousness, so that people go in the movie and see their own degradation and come out and clap for it. They'll tell you in a minute, that's not us. Oh yeah, it was a long time ago, that's not us. If it's not us, then stop lying and portraying it as us. This is all part of the white man's savaging of other people's consciousness and savaging other people's culture. This is out of Africa. This is the lizard man, enemy mind. This is King Solomon's mind. This is Jewel of the Nile. Why is the white man bringing all these things out now? Because it's the rise of an arrogant racism that has even black minds on its side. Look what he did. He put Lou Gossett in a lizard suit and made Lou Gossett have a baby. Any minor study of psychology, any minor study of psychology would tell you one of the most, if not the most offensive thing on earth to the human mind is a reptile. What do you think the second thing most offensive to the white mind? Blood. Link lizard and blood. That's what they did with Lou Gossett. And then they had Lou Gossett do what the white man is working on now in the laboratory. How a white man can have a baby without his woman. They had Lou Gossett to have a baby. Then, now Lou Gossett, remember, is an alien from another planet. Lou Gossett has the baby and dies. And guess what? We got Webster in space. The white man takes the baby back to the planet. Say he raises Fanon said it, let me in with it. The white man cannot teach us anything about humanity, but we cannot teach ourselves about humanity if we do not go back to our roots. I end as Dr. Carruthers began his article in the new book we have out now called Kemet and the African Worldview. If you want to learn about yourself, if you want to answer Fanon's questions, if you want to know who am I really who I am, and am I all I ought to be, then Jake says, a quote from Sinaway, the story of Sinaway, come back to Kemet, come back to the black land. That's how you'll find it out. Asante Sana.
Yes, sir.
You want me to answer questions?
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Well, behind that, you got to be speechless. The good brother will answer a few questions. We have a mic on this side of the auditorium. Those of you who have any questions, please come to the mic and address us. If there are no questions, we're going to send you home then. All right, very briefly, so you can get your minds together. You all know that we're going to be holding the convention starting Thursday. Registration will be going on continuously during Thursday, Friday. Those of you who cannot attend the entire sessions, you can register daily for the special sessions. We expect that there is going to be an overflow, and I want to remind you of something in terms of the development of this particular convention. As Brother Maulana has pointed out, the movement started in Los Angeles, gathered speed in Chicago, and here in New York, we've put on an additional twist The convention is being funded by contributions from the black community. 11 families gave $500 apiece so we could do it, so that New York has something to be additionally proud of in carrying on the tradition that was started some 2 years ago. So the African family has much to be proud of. If there are no questions, then brothers and sisters, we will see you on Thursday for the first session of the convention. All right? Additionally, we have, because of the pressure of the convention coming up, have not gotten out all of the information, but we are conducting the Harlem School of Africana Studies, which is going to start on April the 1st and 2nd. Drs. Clark and Dr. Ben will be teaching as usual. You will, if possible, speak to Sister Kefa or some of the sisters of the First World family for all the pertinent information. Tuition is $70 per 10 sessions, but that's the entire session. It's 6:30 in the evening, and it goes from 6:30 until 8:15. My brother, what is your question?
First, I'd like to thank Dr. Karenga for being active in the black movement for a very, very long time. I had first heard of the Barashango and his book, African People and European Holidays of Mental Genocide.
Okay.
Brother Karenga, he did a whole lot for us when we got an African holiday, because that's what we need. But I had heard a previous tape when you were speaking on black male-female relationships. And at the end, someone had asked you on the time when you was going through turmoil, and you was put in prison because you was framed. And Baraka was one who turned on you at that particular time.
Yes.
And then you spoke of how you was pushing for a cultural revolution then, and that's what made you dangerous. I would like for you to elaborate on that a little more so I can get a better understanding.
Yeah. Appreciating what you've asked, if I understand correctly. Pardon me if some of this sounds a little modest, but in order for me to explain what happened, I have to talk like that. Really, the major criticism and challenge to Marxism is Kawaida philosophy, the philosophy that I have developed. There is no other nationalist philosophy as organized and as structured as Kawaida theory. And it deals with every level of life, especially with the seven core areas of culture: religion, history, social organization, economic organization, political organization, creative production, i.e. art, music, and literature, and then ethos, the collective psychology of people gets as a result of achievement on those other 6 levels. And what the Marxists saw is the need, and they joined with the Panthers to do this, to destroy me, to discredit me. Now, at the same time, they're hostile to me, so is the police. So what the police does is that it begins to work in what is called the COINTEL program to frame me and to take me off the scene, to cut 4 years out of my life on a trumped-up charge, to actually sentence me to 10 years for an alleged assault, and to make it look like murder and mayhem. You and I know that there is no nationalist in the movement more slandered than me. I mean, I told you I don't want to sound immodest, but I'm telling you, there is not one nationalist more slandered than me. And you have to ask why. You don't have nothing on me. The Negro don't have nothing on me. The white man don't have nothing on me. Why do the Negroes, the Marxists, and the police keep talking bad about me? It's because of what I represent and what I've achieved. And I did it in spite of what they did to me. I could have come out of captivity and said, don't let me ever talk to a nigger again. In fact, the Negroes got on the stage against me. The Panthers collected names and addresses of my followers and turned them into the police. At the same time, they said I was working with the police. If I was working with the police, I'd have got me a better deal than that. The fact is that they know, the Marxists know, the white man knows that I'm a nationalist, and I would never accept the white man's rule of me. I don't like him, I don't like his woman, I don't like his dog, I don't like his theology. I don't like his God, I don't like his holy book, I don't like his church, I don't like nothing he got. Look, wait a minute. I don't draw no line. Do you understand that? I don't say, well, I don't like his woman, but I'm going to accept his God. God to me is more important than the white man can make it. He don't give me no book, a man bleeding from his nose, kneecap, and arm, and a devil going to come and bring me a message from God. See, I try to talk peaceful tonight. You understand? I think I did a subdued lecture. You understand? Because I didn't want to like scare anybody or come off too hard. But hey, I got a whole different kind of lecture, and maybe during the conference I'll give you some of it. But that's why they were against me, and that's why you're here now. And you know what? Another thing, black people, I'm going to tell you this. Another reason this went is not only because Baraka turned on me. See, when I met Baraka, let me just give you some history. When I met Baraka, he was running from the Panthers. They had kicked his butt and Ed Bullins and ran them from the Black House. I saw Baraka, and I told Baraka, look, I think I'd met him at Black Conference in Newark, and I said, look, brother, I'm going to go back to Newark, and I'm going to train you a Simba group where you don't have to run no more. Now, I went back there and stayed, and not only trained him a Simba group, what we call a third force, a group of black brothers dedicated to security, but also started C-Fund with it. And people in the audience that know this history, you know I'm not lying. We also started a campaign for peace and power, which led the basis for Ken Gibson and other city councilmen being elected. In fact, they called me back 2 times within the last 2 years and gave me awards for getting them involved in politics, because I did that organizing work. Now, Baraka knew that what the white man was doing to me was wrong, but Baraka had an ego, and he wanted to lead the Kawaida movement. In fact, many people think he introduced the 7 principles and created Kwanzaa, because he allowed himself to do that, all right? He never helped me, and he really, in the final analysis, turned into a Marxist and found the need to savage me. He wrote a very vicious thing on me. Said I was a dope addict, said a lot of things. I mean, I can't even go into all of it. And the tragedy of it is I once liked the man. And even when people came to me and told me the man was emotionally unstable, that he was on his way back to Greenwich Village, I did not accept it. I defended him right up to the last moment. And you know, when I found out he was turning, I was in a Gary Tyler defense committee, and a white Marxist came up and brought me a piece of paper where he had written saying I held him back from communism. Well, in order for him to get into communism, the white communists demanded that he sacrifice me and his relationship with me in order to get into the club, because they had a standing argument against me and hatred for me. So that's what's going on now. Also, it's the symbolic slaying of the father. In order for him to deny how much he owes me, he has to destroy me. It's an old European game. You know, when I just kill, Oedipus killed his father so he get his mother. You understand what I mean? So it's the symbolic slaying of the father. That's a normal psychological thing in a Western society. Do you understand that? He couldn't just say, well, Maulana, I learned this from you, but I'm going on. I could accept that. I don't know where he would go, but you know what I mean? So that's why it is, because I'm uncompromised. And another thing, let me tell you this. Again, don't think I'm arrogant or immodest when I say this. If the whole world turned, I would still be against the white man and his oppression of us. I don't care who sees Marx or Jesus in the moon. I don't care who says the white man is no longer the devil. I don't care who that says we are all human and all that. you remember this. Regardless, I take the position that I will never accept my oppressor. Never. Do you understand that? And it doesn't matter who changes or what. If I were going to break, I would have broken by now. Because there's no advantage except an internal one and a future one to being black and holding a black line. This is not the 60s where you could use blackness to get money, women, and everything else. This is the 80s where black is hated. Where the Negroes that once said, I'll be black till I'm died real quick and came back to life so they could integrate. This is the 80s where they look at you and say, you still saying that? But the 60s is our golden decade. I'm a man of the 60s. I was born in the 60s. Do you understand that? I have no meaning except the 60s. That's when we boldly spoke our special truth to the world. That's when we organized more people than ever before, and when every organization you know, Muslims, Christians, NACP, Corps, SNCC, Panthers, us, were at their height, and they haven't been that way since. And the integrations that talk about 60s, when they had to find something they could all do together, they tried to do a 60s march on Washington. So I'm for that, brother, and that's why they savage me. And I'm telling you one last thing. Another reason they savage me is because people resent me because of my achievement and will not defend me against character assassination. You know, it's almost, you can't even say, Maulana Karenga did this. Well, you know him. You ask the next Negro that says that to you, what he got against me? What did I do to him or his mother or his father? They don't even know me. They're going by what the white man said. And you who sit out here and who are nationalists, you have an obligation to check character assassination. It's like I told Stokely or Kwame Ture. Kwame Ture and I were in the 60s, used to work together and speak together a lot of times. But then he went into the Panther Party. The Panthers saw SNCC as a major organization, and in order to gain their kind of popularity and build up on their reputation, they asked them to come in. And they used to call me all kinds of names because they couldn't tell us what to do. Because we were the only group they couldn't cow. The Panthers cowed every black student union I know. I'm just telling you the reality of it. Sooner or later, you got to hear this. But they couldn't do that. We were the most organized and ideologically ready organization that existed that time. And we had the power to stop whoever transgressed.
A religion or base where people can go through or come to, like as